For today's watch review, we're talking about a fairly new addition to the Orient catalog. This is the M-Force AC0N. The full model number is RA-AC0N01B10B. So as far as model numbers go, Orient probably takes the first place trophy for worst naming conventions ever. However, going back to the watch, the M-Force stands for mechanical, massive, and maverick, which means that it's got a mechanical movement, it's got massive specifications, and it is maverick in its design, or unorthodox, which you can clearly see that the case shape and style is really not your typical watch that you would see. So without further ado, let's get straight into it. I purchased my M-Force directly from the Orient USA website, and it goes for $535 MSRP. However, I did some Google searching and I found a 10% discount and walked out the door with it at $481.50. For case diameter, it's 45 millimeters or 48.1 if we include the crown. Case thickness is 12.7 millimeters. However, it goes up to 13.7 if we also measure the shroud. The lug to lug is 52 millimeters and a lug width of 20 millimeters. And it also comes in at 198 grams or 7 ounces. And here's the wrist shot on my 7.5 inch wrist. The AC0N M-Force comes with the fairly new F6727 movement, which is an in-house Orient movement, and also means that you're going to get a 3-hand dial with a date window. It's automatic and hacking. Accuracy is rated for -15 to +25 seconds per day. Of course, that's overly conservative. You're going to see much better levels of accuracy than that. And it also has a 40-hour power reserve and beats 21,600 beats per hour. Just like with any other watch under the Seiko umbrella, this movement utilizes the DiaShock shock absorbing system. This means that the jewel that supports the balance stem is mounted to a shock absorbing spring system, which then increases the movement's resistance to accidental drops and bumps while also increasing the long-term accuracy of the movement. The exterior case material from top to bottom, including the bracelet, is all stainless steel. And starting from the top, you can see that there is a bi-directional compass bezel with the partial bezel included on the right-hand side. The crown is a screw-down crown, and on the very back we've got a screw-down closed case back. Coming right back to the top, the crystal is a sapphire crystal with the anti-reflective coating, and underneath that we've only got pressed or stamped in indices, unfortunately. I say unfortunately because I prefer applied indices, but on those indices there is applied lume, and for the dial there is a bead blasted graphite dial. All of this is inside a case that provides 200 meters of water resistance. However, the lack of the diver classification on the dial makes me believe that this is not ISO certified, which is an interesting choice considering the previous model was. I can only assume that their implementation of a compass bezel means that this watch was meant for trekking and not diving, so an ISO certification was unnecessary. The lume is, bar none, the strongest lume I've experienced this year. The Orient USA website does not specify which lume they use, but an educated guess would tell me that it is Lumebrite. If you have a watch with Lumebrite, then you know without a doubt that this watch has no problem glowing throughout the night. This is purely subjective, but I noticed that despite its superior brightness, it takes me a second to acquire the time in the dark because the lume is applied only on the borders of the indices. This means there are 24 black spaces on the dial instead of the usual 12, making it slightly harder for me to find the hour and minute hand. Considering this was probably more of an aesthetic design choice, I would have preferred the more practical, solid application of lume to each of the indices. Similar to my gripes with the lume, the stick figure indices and hollow hands make it slightly more difficult for me to tell the time at a quick glance. However, I am not too bright, so you may not have that issue. Aside from that, the dial reminds me of something futuristic, maybe like the headlights from a car in Tron or some kind of gauge you would see in the Cowboy Bebop universe. The bead blasted graphite background does contrast nicely with the sharp white indices, making the important data really stick out. Some may consider the date window too small. Personally, I have no issue with it, and I'm glad they kept the white text with black background in keeping with the rest of the style. The bold and modern M-Force font pairs well with the theme, but the regal looking Orient logo with the word automatic written in cursive underneath it hilariously looks out of place, but mostly in a very endearing manner. Orient is one of those brands that's very easy to love, and it's these kinds of tacky design choices that help make you love them even more. Operation of the bezel is very smooth and without interruption. The jimping on the edge gives the user a solid gripping surface, and the space provided at the 12 and 6 o'clock position allow for easy access. As you can see on the right hand side, there is a partial bezel shroud. Functionally, I don't believe it was meant to do anything other than act as a crown guard, as it certainly has no impact on the bezel itself. If you're curious, here's what the M-Force looks like without the shroud. Very easy to remove via these two hex head screws. I can definitely see some potential for cool mods that you could attach in lieu of the bezel shroud, and hopefully we'll see some stuff on the aftermarket parts forums in the future. The silver tone brushed steel finish on the bezel and the shroud is really the star of the show here, and was the reason why I had to have it in my collection. I knew I wanted the newest M-Force, but I couldn't get past the color schemes, and I was ecstatic when I saw this version released. I do hope they make one with a unidirectional dive bezel, because in my opinion, that's just way more practical. But how it is now is also acceptable. Getting a closer look at the crown, it is signed with the Orient crest, however, it's just a laser etching. It would have been killer to see it engraved on there, but just expect that the crest is going to fade over time and heavy use. You can also see the red line, which serves as a safety indication reminding you whether or not the crown is screwed in. If the line is inside the shroud, then it's locked and watertight, ready for exposure to the elements. The edges are jimped in the same manner as the bezel and allows for a decent grip, even though the shroud kind of gets in the way. The threading is also good and feels smooth to operate. The bracelet utilizes a two-piece H-link system. Each of the links are solid as well as the end links, which does give the watch a much more premium feel to it. Nothing can cheapen a watch faster than hollow and folded steel links. The outside and inside have a brushed finish and are perfect for any kind of rough and tough treatment. Whether you're an outdoorsman or a desk diver, you will not be concerned at all about where this bracelet is swinging. The clasp is a push-button fold-over deploying clasp with the logo and crest stamped right there on the top. It's done in a tasteful manner that I feel adds a nice little touch. While I used to hate stamped steel clasps, I actually don't mind it so much here. It complements the whole worry-free beater watch style that it's going for. There's also an extension that is identical to the one on my Samurai. I'm not going to call it a diver's extension because this is not a diver's watch. It could be useful if you wanted to wear the watch over the cuff of your field jacket. The M-Force uses the pin and collar adjustment system, which I absolutely hate with the passion of 1,000 suns, but I also acknowledge that it's probably one of the most reliable link systems. And you also have access to 4 micro adjust positions on the clasp. Not really much to say here. It's a closed screw down caseback with some boilerplate information on it. As a tool watch, it's perfect, but as a collector, I would have liked to have seen something more decorative. At the end of the day, it does its job, and it's something I'll never see anyways while I'm wearing it. When it comes to my ideal finishing, this is a dream come true. It's brushed all the way through with very minor touches of mirror polish only on the beveled edges. It's not enough to really notice the mirror polish, but just enough to really accentuate the brushed surface on the rest of the case. In my opinion, this is how a professional tool is supposed to look, and aesthetically, it could be worn in any environment and fit right in. If you watched my last review of the Tudor Black Bay, you can tell I have a preference, and this M-Force meets those expectations with flying colors. I don't have much experience with Orient watches, but so far I have been pleased 100% with them. There's nothing remarkably luxurious or special about them, but in that humble description is kind of what makes them so great to wear. Specifically in the case of this M-Force, you've got all the markings of a respectable watch, from the brand's heritage to its ties to the Seiko group, but with the qualities of a watch that is not afraid to get down and dirty. And so what you end up having is a watch you can be proud of and wear without worrying about, and that's such a great combination. Some watches just cause you stress, whether it's the case materials or the price. But in this case, it's zero stress and all enjoyment. Of course, there are some things I would prefer to be changed, like the compass bezel to a diver bezel and fully covering the indices with lume, but those things do not ruin the overall experience for me whatsoever. I like to compare this watch to a mint condition, garage kept Honda Civic from the 80s. It's not luxury, but damn, it's clean and doesn't need anything special for you to enjoy it. For me, watch collecting is all about finding that watch that's a little bit different and unique, and this M-Force sort of epitomizes all of that for me, and it's done nothing but put a smile on my face. So that's about all I've got now. I'll leave you with my recommendation, which is that I wholeheartedly recommend this watch if it's something that you've been considering. Other than that, I hope you enjoyed this review as I had a blast making it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye.